celebrate the life of a dear friend, husband, son, father, grandfather, and brother. It's an honor to be able to guide this service in remembrance of such a beautiful soul, a guiding light, a light born into this world as William Garfield Fleming Jr., a man we lovingly know as Faren. Faren was a true patriot for democracy, and we have a special gift for you today to get us started. Let's all please stand for the national anthem.
National anthem will be sung by Faren Fleming. Mr. Fleming has an expansive career singing from London to Hawaii. He has toured with the 70 ensemble theater and East Coast posters. Mr. Fleming has sung for the Democratic Jefferson Jackson and Eleanor Roosevelt functions for Jefferson and Adams counties. Mr. Fleming will now sing the national anthem a cappella.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I'm missing him already. Yesterday, our 4-year-old wandered into my office and said very quietly to me, he said, "Kevin, why are you crying?" And I told him, I lost a friend. And he said, where did he go? And he said, well, he used to be here and now he's everywhere. Well, not exactly, he's always been everywhere. But now he's just not here in a body anymore. And I miss him. And our 4-year-old sat in my lap for a long time and worked with that. And then suddenly he jumped up and said, "Kevin, I'll be your friend. Let's go play." So if there's this void in your heart that you're missing, I invite you to meet another one of Faren's friends today. We're so lucky he had so many friends that this huge void can help fill. So reach out and meet someone today. I would be grateful that any friend of Faren's would be my friend. Faren was gifted at sharing the treasure of life, God's life, allowing this infinite love of the universe to flow through him and as him. To know Faren is not simply to experience the joy of liking him or appreciate his warm friendship. Indeed, to know Faren is to feel love and adoration. Every part of life every living creature, every person, everything in form, whether it was animate or inanimate, that Faren came into contact with, received a gift of enormous love and compassion. He not only knew God as all things, he lived it from his heart. The sound of his soothing voice, or just simply his laughter, could heal an entire room. And while we will not hear again the sound of that healing voice crossing his lips, or feel the warm touch of his embrace, or be caught in the loving twinkle of his eyes, or find ourselves swimming in the joy of his smile, our times with him have changed our lives forever. Our memories of him will always keep our hearts warm. I can hear him saying something wise and clever to me as I'm struggling to let go of his physical form. Now, Kevin, you know that body was just a temporary gift of the universe. It was getting a bit tattered on the edge, and I was done with it. Please let that part of me go. Time is infinite in the space I am now, or irrelevant if you prefer, and we can hang out together whenever you like. You can cry, and then we'll laugh together. You can feel angry with me. You can feel sorry for yourself. And then, in the comfort of our bond, we'll laugh some more. Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes. For those who love with their heart and soul, there's no such thing as separation. Thank you, Faren, for loving us all with your heart and soul. And I'd like to invite Tommy up to just play a little soft guitar while we pray. Thanks, Tommy. Let us bow our heads and pray for our strength and healing, because I know Faren is still exactly what he always has been, an infinite spirit. As we gather together in this sacred moment, I know there's only one life, and that's God's life. And that life is eternal. It has no beginning and no end. And it flows through each and every person gathered here today to celebrate one of God's expressions of itself. A man we love and know as Faren. I know Faren is here, supporting each of us and sharing the loving energy of God that pours through all of life. I know his presence will continue to support us in finding peace in our hearts and in being instruments of God's love. I know within each of us is a joy and passion that was exemplified through Faren's life. I know within each of us is the strength to move forward in our lives in ways that honor him and honor our past as spiritual beings. I know God's presence, power, and peace of understanding is our true essence and awareness. This earthly world will miss Faren. His physical absence leaves a well of grief that feels like an infinite emptiness. Yet within that abyss is also infinite presence, and the universe's treasure house of every human experience. Within this pain is enormous love. And even as I feel the sadness in our hearts for the transitioning of our beloved, I feel the gratitude we share and the joy of knowing him this lifetime, in knowing his eternal companionship, and in feeling the closeness of his loved ones here today. And so it is. thank you all for coming here today again. Faren touched the lives of so many people in numerous circles. And I know there are countless people that would love an opportunity to share today. My apologies. Time in this space for us is not infinite as it is for Faren. What's even more important, though, is that outside these walls, you can share the loving memories of Faren in ways that continue to support our healing and our own growth. I want to express some sincere gratitude to Shanika Proctor for putting together the program in Faren's biography. It's a wonderful and beautiful tribute. And now to help set up the video for honoring Faren's heart for life, I'm going to ask that the speakers share at this time, beginning with Faren's daughter, Elizabeth Ernest, and one of his many close friends he called family, Rhonda Morales.
Thank you, Kevin. I met Faren and Ted in a hot tub in the summer of 1992, 27 years ago, at 1 Dartmouth Place. The three of us had an instant rapport, and Ted and Faren sort of adopted me kind of like a little sister. I worked on the air at a Denver radio station at the time, and it wasn't unusual for the three of us to stay up talking and laughing into the wee hours of the morning. That's an experience I'm sure that many of you here have also had with our friend who was a night owl. Because my first newscast was at 5 a.m., sleep was pretty much out of the question, and more often than not, I'd just say, forget it, guys, I'm not even going to go to sleep, I just have to get to work now. And Faren and I have laughed a lot about that since then, and we've laughed about those days. Now I'm an early to bed person, but Faren's still a night owl. Now for the interactive part of our service. I would like you to raise your hand if you're a resident or a former resident of the South Albion Street Apartments. Raise your hand if you campaigned with Faren, marched shoulder to shoulder with him, rallied for a cause with him. Raise your hand if you're a kid or a teenager who called him Uncle Faren. Or Elizabeth's children. Raise your hand if you called him Grandpa. Raise your hand if you called Faren your brother or sister, or if he called you his brother or sister. Raise your hand if you had amazing long talks with Faren, confiding in him, laughing until your bellies hurt. Crying until you had tears squirting out of your eyes. Last one, be honest. Raise your hands if you secretly think that you might have been Faren's favorite. Sister, brother, friend. Come on, be honest. Faren had a way of making us each feel that we were his very favorite. Because he could see who we were. He could see us on the inside, and that's what I loved about him. But in truth, like a mother, Faren could never have picked a favorite. We each filled a special place in his heart. So look around the sanctuary for a moment. Look around. We are all united as one, here and out in the world. United by our common sibling and our common relative, William Faren Fleming, and that makes all of us family. Faren had so many friends and so many communities in which he participated in play, And we each knew Faren from our own perspective. So today's a treat because we will all have the opportunity to fill in all of those details and see Faren from a more complete three-dimensional perspective. We'll hear from someone from each of his communities, and I hope someone will speak on behalf of one of his communities that can't speak for itself, and that's nature, about his squirrel family, for whom he was the fourth great-grandfather, and for the beautiful trees in front of South Albion Street Apartments. Okay, one last question, I'll wrap up my comments, and I encourage you to be honest about this. Raise your hand if there was ever a time when you thought about visiting, calling, texting, and were simply too busy. Go ahead, raise your hand. I have had those times too, and truthfully, it haunts me a little bit now. But Faren would say, please don't feel bad on my behalf, but also don't put it off. When you get that prompt, do it, because not taking the time to communicate with our friends, family, and coworkers is a tragedy. Life is precious, and life is fleeting. So Faren, thank you for the reminder. I am sorry for the times that I didn't call you, and I cherish the times that we called each other at the exact same moment. No ring, just fair? Sis? Then the beautiful laughter, which I think was Faren's most beautiful music. Because we had that little wonder twin telepathy. Faren, I love you. I miss you like crazy. And thank you for inspiring me and reminding me of who I am and why I'm here. And now it's my privilege and honor to introduce you to Elizabeth Ernest. Faren calls her Beth, as does her mother. Elizabeth is Faren's daughter through his marriage with Ted. And when Ted, Elizabeth's biological father, passed away just before she turned 16, Faren filled the role of father, and he cherished that higher than any other role he played. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Rhonda. I came to be Faren's daughter in a not-so-usual way. I was 6 years old, and my brothers and mom and I lived in Connecticut, and my dad invited his new friend, Faren, over for dinner. My mom had agreed to cook. And Faren was unlike anyone I had ever met. I was immediately fascinated. We'd lived a pretty sheltered life at that time and not exposed to a lot of diversity. He was actually the first black man I ever met, and the first openly gay man I had ever met. And he was in his 20s and pretty flamboyant. He was very unique, but what most struck me about Faren was my dad telling a story during dinner that Faren had a slit down the middle of his tongue. And as children do, I became fixated. I had to see it, over and over, not once or twice, but like a dozen times. And Faren, ever patient, never became annoyed or irritated or dismissive like grown-ups often do. He was patient, and he happily complied every time, showing me his tongue during dinner. That was the Faren I first remember meeting, the childlike, exuberant, ever patient young Faren. We soon moved to Colorado as my parents divorced shortly after that. And Faren and my dad stayed on the East Coast in New York and New Jersey. And during that time, Faren would put together these amazing care packages and send them to me with homemade crystal necklaces that he beaded, oatmeal face masks that he made himself and sent out, my first pair of red cowgirl boots and MC Hammer pants, Doc Martens. He became my personal fashion consultant, what every little girl dreams of. But he became so much more. During that time, a popular NBC TV show aired called My Two Dads. And it wasn't exactly the same scenario as what I had, but it was similar nonetheless. It was a girl who had two dads. Neither was married to her mom, and she didn't know which one was biologically hers, so they were both her dads. I was so excited, I called my dad, "Dad, it's just like me, I have two dads." And from that point on, I had two dads. My dad, Ted, got ill and died rather quickly when I was 15, without much warning, and Faren and I both went through pretty tremendous grief over that loss. But what brought me so much consolation was realizing that Faren had left me the best gift. My dad had left me the best gift. He had left me his Faren. From that point on, every birthday card, Faren would sign it, "Love, your two dads." He stood there in behalf of my dad. Every heartache, every wrong turn I took, every stumble, every fall, it was Faren. He was the ear, the shoulder. He was who I called first. Every big news I had, every accomplishment, it was Faren. During the 20 years that followed the passing of my dad, Faren and I developed this knack, this telepathic communication, where one of us would think of the other, and they would call time after time after time. It worked both ways. We became really close in the following years. Regardless of the path or the phase of life that I was in, Faren was there, a fountain of unconditional, non-judgmental love to support me, my biggest cheerleader. Whether I was the bratty and obnoxious little sister, or the defiant and rebellious teenage girl, the vegan hippie, there was Faren twisting up my dreadlocks, putting beads in there, and twisting them into these awesome Celtic knots. There was Faren. As I became the student pursuing higher education, Faren began calling me my daughter the doctor, in what he called his gay New York Jewish mother voice. When I decided to stop a couple years shy of that doctorate degree, I had to tell Faren, and I was nervous to tell him, "I'm sorry, I'm going to focus on the profession." He had to stop calling me his daughter the doctor, but I was still his daughter. It wasn't his favorite of my choices, but then again, there he was, the unconditional, accepting, non-judgmental fountain of love. As I progressed as a professional into a wife, there was Faren walking me down the aisle, side by side with my mom, giving me away the first time I married. I went through a phase shortly after that, which was not Faren's favorite of my phases. It was my born-again Christian phase, and I decided everything that didn't fit into that paradigm had to go. So I packed up books and statues and tarot cards and CDs and anything that didn't align with this new set of beliefs, and I asked Faren if he would have these things. He told me no, which he rarely did. He said he would happily hold them for me, and should I change my mind at any point, he would be happy to give them back. Because you see, Faren knew it would be just a phase, and happily it was, but he was never there to judge. He never lectured or tried to convince me otherwise. He just accepted me and met me where I was. That's the Faren I know. As I became a mother, Faren was the first one there to meet my firstborn child, happily accepting his new role as Grandpa Faren, and he was an amazing grandpa. Just 2 days prior to his crossing over, he was there, sitting in the front row of my daughter Hannah's play for Annie with my son on his lap, cheering her on as her biggest cheerleader, just like he's always been mine. Faren was the most beautiful example of non-judgmental love and acceptance. Being his daughter has been the biggest honor. Thank you, Faren. And now I would like to introduce his good friend Sean McGeehan. He called Sexy Jesus.
Thank you, Beth. I met Faren about 5 years ago, and when I met Faren, he was still bald. He was still wearing glasses all the time, and we bonded over ancient aliens. From that day on, we were best friends, and he's been my best friend for the last 5 years. Faren is the best friend I've ever had. He taught me what real, genuine, loving friendship is. He taught me the value of unconditional love and how to practice it. Him and I have supported each other these last few years through everything. Relationships, heartache, depression, health scares. growing family. He's the uncle to my son. We've lost friends. We've cried together. I could go on for days talking about our adventures, our talks on life and love, especially politics. I remember taking him out to karaoke the first time. That's why he calls me Sexy Jesus. That is what I do. I'm a karaoke host. And I've been a resident in his building for the better part of the last 5 years as well. And that man. We love singing together, and we love sharing our music, and writing, and our art together. I remember when he first started wearing hair again, and the looks of joy on his face when people would grossly misguess his age. At my karaoke shows, we would play a game that if you could guess Faren's age, I'd buy you a drink. But if you couldn't guess Faren's age, you had to buy him a drink. I never bought anyone a drink. But mostly, though, as Rhonda pointed out earlier, I remember our late nights and our early mornings. We were both night owls. I work nights. I come home at 2:30 or 3 in the morning. He'll be waiting up for me with a cigarette and a glass of brandy just to ask me how my day was. We'd spend late nights and many hours on that stoop out front of South Albion Street Apartments. I've lived above Faren, directly and above the band for the last 2 years. So I am the band groupie support, anything they need. Executive producer. Me and Faren didn't always agree sometimes on our various musical and artistic choices, but we always talked about them as friends, and we supported each other in our decisions. I enjoyed his company more than anyone else I've ever known. Faren is the greatest man I've ever known, and I love him and I miss him very much. And just to close out my part here, my name is Sean Allen McKeon. We're a very Irish family, so I feel it's appropriate to speak an Irish poem for him. It's titled Remember Joy. He could not stay another day, to love, to laugh, to work or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. If his parting has left a void, we must fill it with remembered joy. I love you, Faren. We miss you, and we will see you around. Up next, I'd like to welcome Lee Reffel to the microphone of the band Perfect High, Conundrum, and many other music exploits they have participated in over the years.
So the first time that I met Faren was back in 2012. I met Tommy and Wade at the same time, and that's the first band we're in, Conundrum, together. And we hit it off just like that. I knew I'd be friends with him for life. And through him, I've met a lot of great people, and I hope to, strengthen those relationships with him. Faren had his great sense of humor and, of course, his New York accent, so he would go up to strangers and you'd see him parallel park the car and he's like, "You park your car like a New Yorker." And they would just laugh and just kind of, But he would comment on just about anybody he's seen and give him a compliment, wave, and that's why he was so loved around his building, especially. But got a chance to play with him in this current band, Perfect High, for about 4 years, and we definitely want to continue his legacy. One of his favorite songs that we're going to end up playing for you is "It's Gonna Rain." And eventually, in his honor, make that a single. Because it's a beautiful song. We just never really got to play it live, except for like maybe 2 or 3 times. So, but I think that there's other things to be grateful for. Faren definitely was a connector. He brought us all together. He was a big part of our family. And it's funny because Leah and her mom, last name is Flemings, so it's like a sister from another mother. But Leah, do you want to say anything? No. So it's definitely tough, losing him. But I don't think he'd want us to be sad. I think he'd want us to celebrate our new connections with each other, and our dreams and goals, whatever they may be. He'd always be there for us, and we're going to make him proud. So I want to introduce Julia.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, sis.
I'm Julia. I'm the one that took Faren into politics. And when I take you into politics, you don't turn around. You just stay with me. I met Faren years ago. I don't even know how many years ago, at my friend Kathy's house. And the voice that he had was so amazing. So I told him he was going to sing at the big Colorado State JJ dinner. He says, oh, I said, oh yeah. And he sang the national anthem. People were astounded. It's like, whoa, who is that? And I told him, I said, from now on, we're making money doing this, okay? So, and he sang everywhere. And in 2004, he was the Carrie Edwards advance person with Wade. And he got to meet all these politicians. He couldn't believe it. He said, I have never in my life thought I'd meet all these people. Well, I'm known as the mouth of the party. And of course, he was going to meet everybody that I knew. And it was in 2004 at the convention that everybody got to meet Barack Obama. So with his hard work with Carrie Edwards and all the stuff that we did that year, he was hooked. And I know when he got up there with God, and I call him my songbird, he got up there and found out God was a Democrat. And that's what he is. And Faren's up there telling him everything he wants him to change. And I know he is. And Faren will always be with me. I don't feel sad because I know he's right here. And we've had some strange things happen to us, Kathy, Faren, and myself. Kathy had a mini mansion, and all of a sudden one day we could hear these people talking, and it wasn't us, but it was us. And it was the strangest thing in this big old huge place. And we looked at each other and started laughing because, see, to me, Faren and Kathy were my brother and my sister in another life, and I truly believe that. And that's why I know he just jumped out of this body to get a new one. But he will always have that wonderful soul. He sang at my daughter's reception. My daughter told me one time, if you don't like Faren, I don't like you. And just like me, she's got a mouth. So always remember, I know a lot of you have heard about me. And I don't know who that was. It's probably somebody that looked like me. Faren was always telling stories. But I love him. I will always be with him. And he will always be with me. Now I'd like to introduce you to Representative Paul Rosenthal.
Thank you. I'm no longer elected. I'm no longer in office, so it's just Paul. And thank you very much, Julia. And it's great to see some of you who I just heard about from Faren. And I get to finally, see who you are, and thank you for being in his life. And I just wanted to say, Faren, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss the times when you came over for dinner, and you quickly became the life of the party. I'll miss picking you up in my car and I'd ask you, so where do you want to eat? And you would say, I don't care, I'm fast, easy, and cheap. And when we got together, you were always such a great listener, so loving, so supportive, so kind. And when I drop you off, I'd think to myself, I did most of the talking, but I really didn't listen to you very much. But he did not seem to mind that at all. I'll miss you telling me that how you would love to braid my chest hair. I will miss, like some folks talked about earlier, I'll miss driving by on I-25 by Colorado Boulevard, knowing that you lived nearby, and just calling you up real quick on the phone. I'll miss your crazy optimism, your smile, your laugh, and sometimes your crazy outfits. I'll miss your discussions about metaphysical things that I still don't understand. But he would start talking and I'm like, what did he just say? Like, come on, anybody else in that position? Yeah, I bet. But I love him for it. Lucky me, I met you at the caucus of the Democratic Party. Thank you, Julia, and others for getting him involved. That was about 20 years ago. We became fast friends. I loved to see him be involved and how he worked on so many different campaigns and sang at all those dinners, and how he energized the room, and you could just hear the depth and the soul that really went into his rendition of the national anthem. And I knew that I could also always count on you to help me on my campaigns. Thank you, Faren. So you were a proud Democrat, you were a proud husband to Ted, who you miss dearly, who you talked about a lot. And now you're in heaven with him. You're a proud father, you were a proud grandpa, you were a proud entertainer, you were a proud building manager, and I'm so happy to see some folks from South Albion Street Apartments. And by the way, that was always fun too, when we were at dinner and somebody would call. You'd have to pick up the phone, and we were in the middle of dinner at a restaurant. South Albion Street Apartments. Oh my God, come on, everybody, you know what that sounds like. It's so positive, it's so chipper. So, I'm so happy that he took such good care of you. He thought you were his kids. Thank you, Faren. Thank you for being my friend. I'll miss you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Wade Norris. I'm going to get through this, but before we start, I'm going to count 3, 2, 1. I want everybody to say as loud as you can, "We love you, Faren." Okay? So, 3, 2, 1.
We love you, Faren!
You know, when I first met, back in February 2004, I knew the Democratic caucus was coming up. So I attended a training downtown done by Miss Julia Hicks. And I went to the caucus, and I was an HD9 at TJ High School, and there was this proud, gay, flamboyant black man there, Faren. And he quickly was nominated to be the chair without even starting the caucus. As the meeting went on, people kept going, okay, what do we do next? And they'd say, I think we do this. And I was sitting in the back of the room kind of quietly. I was like, that's not quite how you do it. I just went to this training with Julie. And by the end of the caucus, they said, we definitely want Faren to be the chair, but we want you to be the co-chair. And that began our friendship. So we'd meet up at the pub for strategy, the local pub we walked to. And not too long after that, I learned quite quickly what most of you don't know about Faren. He is his dad's son. He is a military-minded guy. And I found that out one night. We were at the bar. Rob, the bartender, was a Marine, former Marine, tough, good guy. And I was walking back from the bathroom, and two guys were playing pool. Now, remind you, this is suburban Denver. It's a very chillax, white bread bar. And some dude is mad he lost in pool, and he goes up with some nunchucks and just cocks this guy in the back of the head, knocks him right out, blood. And I looked around the room, kind of like, Avengers or something, look around. I lock eyes with the bartender. All right, he's on it. And the only other person that's looking is Faren. And he's ready to spring action. Everybody else is freaking what out. Within minutes, Rob, the bartender, had the guy subdued. I was calling the police and dealing with them, and Faren was soothing everybody. That's what he did. So when I got the opportunity to drive Kerry Edwards Advanced in the 2004 campaign, the first person I called was Faren. And something about in every situation we were in, whether we were driving staff, CNN acres, the Durham vice president, candidate, the presidential candidate around, wherever we were, I always felt very safe with Faren. And now I got to tell you this one little story. We were at the Buell Theater, and they were doing the first debate on TV, and it was Faren had on his tie and his coat and his suit, and he had Ray-Bans on. And he said to me, he's like, you know what, they're not doing good enough security checks. They're just letting people go in and sit down. And we have a principal here. A principal is a VIP. And so he was going up and down the aisle, checking out everybody sir, can I look in your bag? And he came back to me and he said, I just went up to people that I've known for 10 years and they didn't have any idea who I was. I said, dude, I don't have any idea who you are. He was just so in character, he could have been Secret Service. And so later, as the night wrapped up, some dude, a principal, is there with about a dozen people waiting to speak to him. And he's got a car and he's got a driver. And I said, man, I am tired. Let's just go. This guy's got a driver. He says, we remain with the principal. And I was like, all right, Samuel. And I'm glad I stayed because the last woman that was there talking with the principal started talking and then just lost it. She said, my son just died in Iraq. And the principal went on to explain that his son, Bo, was serving in Iraq. That was the first time we met Joe Biden. That got me to respect Faren in a way that I knew that when he took his property management position that I helped him get, he was a guardian, not just a mayor of that building, but a guardian of the building and the block. If you knew him, you were in protected territory, which we're all gonna have to work on doing for each other now. One of the things metaphysical that he talked about, I have a degree in theology, and I started opening up the Bible and talking. He's like, read the first part, and I was like, in the beginning, God created. He said, stop. You could get serious. He said, that statement indicates that there is a different time, that we are in a different part of time than right now, and that we are not part of what's being created all the time. He said, your job is to create the world you want to see. And that's what he was constantly doing with his residents, his friends, and his family. He was always creating this bright vision that I sometimes couldn't see. I was kind of cynical. But he brought me to a place where I wasn't such a hothead. Later, when I kind of pulled out of politics and started working in music, first person I asked to come sing with us was Faren. And as you've heard before today, to know Faren well was to know that he was brokenhearted over Ted. Very sad. And I spent a lot of nights consoling him. And I want to say that when he got back into music, I could see him healing day by day as we worked on music. And towards the end with Perfect High, I didn't have to, Sean kind of became the wingman at that point, but I knew I didn't have to call and check on him to make sure he was okay, because I could tell he was in such a better place. The music healed him, and he used the music to heal us. Lastly, I want to thank Shanika for putting this program together. She had gone to see Faren because he do black hair for her mom's upcoming funeral. And he was a constant source of comfort for her, and that kept us in better touch. And on Monday, June 3rd, we came back from the East Coast from the funeral. And on Tuesday, I got up and Shanika says, "You don't have to go to work if you don't feel up to it." I said, "I need to go to work." And I said, "Maybe it'll be a light day." You know, I deliver for FedEx. And I walk in, my supervisor comes up to me, he says, "Wade, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you got 15 50-pound boxes of trees that need to go on your truck, and they need to go out first because they're perishable." And I was like, cuss word. So I get to the house in Littleton, and this dude, this hoss, opens the door, and I'm like, "Oh, you can help me unload these trees." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, sure. And then I hear, "Wade?" "It's me, Beth." I'm like, "Beth?" I hadn't seen Beth in 5 years. Oh, wow. And instantly I said, "We got to call Faren." So we talk, and then I unload the trees, and then I talk to him again. I say, "When I get back from North Carolina after July 4th, we're going out in the boat because I just moved it to Chatfield, and she's only 10 minutes from here." And he's like, "It's a deal." That would have been today. We would have been on the boat. I think that happened because, as Beth has told me, and you've raised your hand already, we want to have that last thing we want to be said, which is not goodbye, but "I'm going to see you on the boat, brother. I'm going to see you again." And the last thing I said to him is like, "We're going sailing, dude. We're going sailing again." That was one of his favorite things to do with me. So, I love you, man. And as I told Lee when it first happened, when things like this happen, Faren was the first person I wanted to call and talk to. And now I can't. But I hope we will all talk to each other. Stay in touch. I missed you, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you, everyone that spoke. Now I'd like you to please enjoy this video.